In this video, we're going to have a run through of the basic insulation process that we adopt at Voyage Adventure Vans. I'll point it out from the outset that I don't do a vapor barrier in any of the vans that we do. The way the vans are built, it's impossible to get a full seal all the way round, and therefore I would prefer to leave the van breathe. This subject seems to fiercely divide people, so I won't get drawn into a debate on it. Let's just accept that we all do it different ways. In the time lapse that's running here, Nick's basically going through the van and put in the first layer of it's a Dodo Thermal Extreme. I think it's about 6 or 7 mil thick. He started putting the thin strips of it in the ridges on the ceiling, and then the next stage is basically going over the main sections between the beams, and then there's a final section that we do later on, which is the sort of edges, which is step down again. What you will notice with any of these sort of XPME closed cell foam sort of insulation mats, what you'll notice with them is that they don't tend to stick very well if you go round bends with them. So what we're trying to do is keep it to layers rather than flexing it. By doing this, what you do is reduce the chances of it sort of peeling itself back off the ceiling. It likes to stick to a flat surface, but contours definitely aren't its strong point. So here what I'm doing is basically putting the smaller strips over what is the gutter channel. So this has got the mounts for the awning sticking down into it. So I make a couple of little holes because it definitely won't like sitting over those. And basically overlap it about 2 inches onto the main section. So what we've done in all of the sort of vehicle voids, on the side panel voids, and any flat surfaces, basically where there isn't double skin, we've put the 6 mil Dodo. On the bigger conversions where weight is a serious issue, we tend to leave out the layer of sound deadening, or the dedicated sound deadening, in favour of just doing 2 layers of XPME, which is normally a Dodo extreme thermal insulation, and then with a fleece over the top. What we found over the years is that products like the Dodo Extreme, which has got a closed cell foam and then foil backing, does have quite a good sound deadening properties. By the time you've added the layer of fleece on top of it, when you're in the front of the van, you're really not going to notice any road noise coming through wheel arches and panels and things like that. So we'd rather save the weight where we can, and then not add another process underneath, which to my mind is serving very little purpose on a van of this type. On the other hand, if we were doing a passenger carrying vehicle, or a van with decent audio installation, then we would absolutely go nuts with the sound deadening in those cases. So what we've got with the Dodo that we're applying here, this is cut to a pre-shaped pattern, mostly fits if you can stick it in the central position. But basically, because we do this same size, same shape every time, I've got a pattern with 3 pieces, and they're designed to follow the contours and meet up without sort of trying to do it in sort of 10 different pieces. The way the pattern is made, the fit is pretty good, and it gives a good butt join around the top of the sort of wheel arch. But then we do sort of just seal it off with silver foil tape, not really to complete the join, more just to stop it lifting on the edges, because there is a slight curve there, and being honest with you, that's the sort of place where this stuff will lift if it's going to lift. Final layer of insulation is about a 40 mil thick fleece type insulation, recycled plastic bottles, that type of thing. It's cut to size and spray glued in place. Not heavily spray glued, but enough to just to keep it there before the ceiling goes up. We'll also tear this into small strips and pieces and basically poke it into all of the voids and cavities in the panel work. If the video so far has been useful to you, please consider giving it a like. It'll also be worth subscribing, as over the next couple of months we've got some really good detailed information on conversions coming up. What we're going to do today is prep the rear door pillar for carpet lining. So we're going to pop out the additional light, drilling snap fixings into the wall or into the pillar. This pillar has got a wiring loom, obviously that's part of it. There's a wiring loom that runs all the way up here. You can, if you put your hand into these holes, you can feel the wiring loom. It's in conduit there. Here part of it splits out of the conduit or Copex and is loose, and then as we come down this side, then it's just in cloth tape. It does tend to want to sit here, and then as it comes down here it'll take its own path. However, once you've stuffed insulation into this pillar, which most people are going to stuff insulation in there, we're certainly going to be doing it, then you tend to fix the position of that wiring loom. Now if you fix it and push it against this area, which would be its natural lay, then as soon as you screw through there you run a very, very high risk of hitting that wiring loom. So personally, what we do, knowing that we may well be fitting our own thermal curtain to this area, then we're certainly going to try and push the wiring loom to the outside, and all the way around here we're trying to push it up an inch or so away from this edge so that you can get the tip of a drill in, and then I think the screws are probably about a ½ inch screw that snap fixings use. So if you're trying there to put screws in this wall, once you've pushed the wiring loom out of the way, you know that you've got a safety margin. If it was me and I didn't know whether that had been done, I wouldn't be going anywhere near it with screws, just for the simple reason that hitting this wiring loom over here is going to be an absolute swine to fix. So that's the first tip, push that away. What I'm also going to do in preparation for our first fix wiring is run some Copex up here and over the top and down this side, because there aren't many ways to get cables from this side of the van to this side of the van cleanly. So we will have a sort of trunking area across the floor, but that's very limited. So on this side we're going to be wanting to run the water pump, we're going to be running some lights, so 2 lots of Copex will be fine. The difficulty that you've got is that there isn't an easy way into this area from here, hence Volkswagen man putting big holes here and taking the wiring loom across this corner. Now I don't want to start drilling into this corner section because it could later create structural problems, rust problems. So what we're going to do is just bring it across and deal with it in the corners of our overhead lockers. So we'll have Copex coming across here, and we'll have some Copex coming across here. It's going to come down the pillar and then it's going to come out at the bottom. It's going to be behind our electrical area that's boxed in, so that won't cause an issue either. So say I'm going to just run some Copex, then I'm going to push the insulation in and around that Copex to keep it off this drill area. Let's call it a safe drilling area. So first things first, I got 20mm, I think it might be 22mm external Copex. much bigger than that, and it starts becoming a pain to feed through and deal with in the corners. But certainly, you know, 2 lots that go all the way around will be sufficient. So if I put that in here, so now it's a case of basically protecting this wiring run from screws. So it's just going to be some careful application of insulation. Get the insulation, push the wiring out of the way, and then basically make sure there's a good sort of wad of insulation pushing it up to the top. So I know now at this point the conduit and the other wiring loom is pushed up here. I mean, you can see that there now. So I'm going to do the same now with another chunk here. The problem is you've got very limited access in here. I mean, luckily these holes, I've got fairly small hands, but we can push this up here and get something in this section. And then I can do the same here and push it across to this bit. And the very corners are the worst places, because that's where the wiring wants to tuck into this area. Audio. For stuffing insulation down into sections which are clearly inaccessible, then something like a bit of plastic. I mean, we use the 12mm John Guest pipework, and that's great for a little offcut of that, just for poking insulation down. I'm just doing my best at this point to hold the wires there whilst pushing insulation this side. I'm just going to disconnect this now, tuck the wire in the gap so that we can cut it free later in order to sort of carpet the van. So I'm just going to sort of leave that in there. Just going to tuck it back off the front so that when I blade that out I got no chance of going through it. So put that safe.